So I kind of noticed something weird in the music industry right now, in the music world in general. It feels like for the first time in modern history, there isn't really a main character, so to speak. Like, there's no single genre running the culture or no sound that instantly tells you what era you're living in. There's nothing really, not even a movement, nothing like that. And that's kind of strange because music has always worked that way. But for decades, entire generations could be summarized by a sound. You could hear a song for about like 10 seconds or whatever, and you would know exactly what time period it came from. Music didn't really just sit in the background like it does now. It shaped fashion, politics, attitudes, the way young people just saw the world, and now everything kind of just feels scattered. So what's actually happening right now? Are we entering an era where genres stop pushing pop culture forward altogether, where music becomes background noise instead, or is it just the quiet before something big comes along and resets everything again? Let's go ahead and talk about it. For most of modern history, music culture moved in clear chapters. In the 1950s and early 60s, rock and roll wasn't just music, it was a rebellion. It was young people separating themselves from their parents' world for the very first time. Elvis wasn't just a singer, he was a symbol of social change. Music felt like a shared language overall. And then the 80s arrived and pop became this massive visual experience. MTV turned songs into events. Artists weren't just musicians anymore, they were global brands. The 90s brought in hip-hop into the mainstream and grunge into the spotlight. The 2010s really just cemented hip-hop as the defining genre of an entire generation. Fashion, language, marketing, social media culture, all of it was shaped by rap. Even if you didn't like it, you really couldn't escape it. Music had gravity back then, and genres pulled everything else into their orbit. Now you compare that to today. You ask 10 people what the sound of the 2020s is, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. TikTok music, country, Latin music, underground rap, indie rock. I mean, none of them are wrong, and that's kind of the problem. We don't live in one musical world anymore. We live in hundreds of smaller ones that barely touch. Like, think about it this way. Two people can be the same age, live in the same city, scroll the same apps, and still have completely different musical realities. One person might think that country is everywhere, and another might barely hear it. One person might think underground rap is the heartbeat of youth culture, and another might never encounter it. There's just no shared soundtrack anymore, and when there's no shared soundtrack, then there's no single genre pushing pop culture forward. Like, there's no unified aesthetic and no collective movement. Music still exists, it's being made, and it's still being streamed in massive numbers, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to everyone anymore. Alright, so let's go ahead and just talk about the elephant in the room here. If you stop talking about culture for just a second and look at raw data, realistically, country music is dominating right now. It's not in a flashy way, but just kind of like in a consistent, unignorable way. I mean, country artists don't just debut high, they really stay up there. They rack up billions of streams across entire albums, not just one viral song. Their fans actually listen to full projects, they buy tickets, they show up in massive numbers. I mean, they really do just stick around for years. From a business perspective, country might be the healthiest genre in the industry right now. It's reliable, it's loyal, and it's just stable. And in an era where pop stars burn out in 2 years and viral hits disappear in 2 weeks, that kind of stability is really rare, and you gotta give it to country. You could easily argue that country replaced pop and hip-hop as the genre best adapted to the streaming economy. But despite all of that though, it still doesn't really feel like the genre defining the moment, and this is kind of the key distinction. Country music dominates streaming platforms and social media, but it doesn't necessarily dominate the imagination. It doesn't reshape how other artists sound, and it doesn't dominate meme culture or anything like that. Now, that's not a knock on country music, it's just how the genre functions naturally. Rock used to represent an entire generation, hip-hop did the same later. Country never aimed to be the voice for everybody, it aimed to be the voice of its people. So we end up kind of in this strange historical moment where the biggest genre economically is not the genre shaping culture or mood or anything like that. So how do we get here? Streaming really shattered the shared experience, really. Radio used to funnel millions of people into the same songs, whether they wanted to hear them or not, and that really did create cultural gravity. But now everything is just personalized for your taste. It's isolated, optimized for comfort, all because of algorithms. Algorithms don't want movements, they want retention. TikTok creates moments and not eras. Hooks replace albums, and virality replaces longevity. It turned music into content instead of culture. All of this slowly pulled music away from the center of society and placed it into thousands of separate digital rooms. Now, there's one more piece to this that I think really gets overlooked a lot and might be the biggest reason, to be quite honest with you. We might not just be losing dominant genres, we might be losing the conditions that create musical movements in the first place. If you look back at the biggest shifts in music history, they weren't random. They were emotional reactions to pressure. Now, you really compare that to today, and we live in a world where we absorb more information in a week than people used to see in years. Every single day, it's wars, economic instability, climate disasters, mass shootings. I mean, you name it, we've all seen it at this point, non-stop. And as messed up as it sounds, the human brain adapts to that, not by becoming stronger, but by becoming numb to it all. Like, think back on 9/11, how that changed the emotional tone of music and movies in the early 2000s, or how the crack epidemic and the inner city violence shaped the voice and urgency of hip-hop in the 80s and 90s. Like, those moments didn't compete with thousands of other tragedies in your pocket, and that really is the biggest problem. They had space to breathe. Like, now a global crisis trends next to a meme, a brand deal, and a reaction video. Nothing gets silenced, and nothing gets time to settle into the culture deeply enough to become a movement. So when people ask why music doesn't feel revolutionary anymore, part of the answer might be uncomfortable, to be quite honest with you. It's not that artists stop reacting to the world, it's just that the world is too loud for any single reaction to echo. Movements need emotional focus. And attention is one thing, unfortunately, that modern life does not allow. There's a part of this that is genuinely beautiful, though. In a way, artists have way more freedom than ever. Less gatekeeping, more diversity, more voices, and just more ways to build a career, and that's all great, but something really is missing from all of this. There's no collective musical memory being formed. No sound that people will instantly recognize 20 years from now and say, yeah, man, that was our time. So what happens now? Maybe this is permanent. Maybe culture is just too fragmented for any genre to dominate again, or maybe history ends up repeating itself. Maybe a new movement forms somewhere and nobody's paying attention. Or maybe, God forbid, maybe AI becomes the next cultural earthquake. We'll have to see, and I really hope that doesn't happen. My lord, I hope. All I know is that right now, culture doesn't have a leader, and that might be the real story of modern music. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. What genre do you think is going to step up and start moving pop culture forward again? Let me know in the comments. I want to know. Thanks for watching. God bless, and I will see you in the next video. See ya.